So the first thing we want to deal with is this notion of the twin flame, so-called twin flame. Now, if you Google twin flame, you also Google soulmate and so forth, you'll find a great deal of misinformation regarding what a twin flame is. It's all misinformation coming from the whites and their offspring. They'll talk about the origin of the twin flame relationship, and they have certification courses and books and videos and, you know, initiations, all kinds of foolishness, totally inaccurate what they're teaching. They'll talk about the origin of it coming from Plato in the Symposium, when he's talking about originally men had a body that was round with 4 arms and 4 legs and 2 heads connected together in an androgynous fashion. And then eventually the deities, Zeus and so forth, split them apart. And they've been seeking their other half ever since. And then they talk about how men and women, the 2 halves, would come together. But then they also talk about how when a male finds his other male half, or a woman finds her other male half and so forth, talking about the male, men and women and women, then that's the most advantageous relationship. So once, as usual, they're pushing dissexuality, homosexuality, the insanity of dissexuality, homosexuality. When they're talking about twin flame relationships and the coming together of that, this is what these perverts are pushing. And then when you look in the Kabbalah and they're talking about the original man being bound together as a, united soul and split apart in the divine scission and so forth, that is totally inaccurate as well. So the origin of the term, first and foremost, we want to get into the cosmology. We wrote an article about that, and we did the etymology and so forth. So first and foremost, let's look at this. We're the first to give the proper etymological origin of the term twin flame. Now, first we're going to, just so you can see some etymology on this, and then we'll get into it. So if you look at the term twin, and what's the etymological origin of the term twin? You'll see from the root duo, which of course is duo, dual, dwi, and so forth. You go to that portion. Duo, Proto-Indo-European root meaning 2. And then you have the derivations duo, di like dipole, digraph, dichotomy. Di comes from du. You have diva, dua, different variations of du, di, duo, duo, di, and so forth. This is where you get this whole notion of 2. Di, du, this is where it comes from. Now we're going to show in the language of ancient Kamit and Kemet where that T or 2 or di or di comes from. And of course, twin, twine, twin, twilight, twill, twice, tweet, that all comes from the same root. Now, let's go back to our document so we can see where it actually comes from. So we have here the Baiti. We have the Ba and the Bayet are the spirit, the divine living energy, animating creation. The whites and their offspring misnomer or misdefine the Ba as the soul, but it's actually the spirit, the divine living energy, as we're going to get into. It is the Ka, male, and Kaet, female, which is the soul. And there's the Kauti, which is the soul mate and so forth, which is a separate broadcast. But the Baiti is the twin spirit. So Ba is the male term for spirit, Bayet is the female term for spirit. So it's not the soul god or the soul goddess, it's the spirit divinity, the spirit god, the spirit goddess. So Ba shown as sometimes as a bird, sometimes with a bird, with a bowl of burning incense, as we're going to get into. Bayet is the feminine spirit. But then you have BAITI, and that T, BAITI, is the dual T, by spirit. So that T has to do with duality. Du, dwi, tween, twin, all of that is coming from ancient Khanate Kemet, but specifically, it says the two divine souls, but it's really the two divine spirits in the pyramid texts of Unas and Meren Ra and so forth, the U and the M and so forth. Also the two, not souls, but spirits in the two Chafi. That's the origin. Now we're going to go into that text. Before we get into that, you want to see Shu and Tefnut, the divine male and female force of expansion and contraction. So first we're going to talk about what the Ba is, and then we're going to get into that text from ancient Kemet proving the origin of the, twin flame notion, and then Shu and Tefnut being those two divinities that carry that energy with regard to the notion of a splitting of a relationship and joining back together. So it's all cosmological. But first, we need to know what a spirit is. What is the term for spirit? Why is Ba and Bayet the term for spirit? So we wrote an article on this topic. We're going to put the link in the chat room. And once you get this information, and until we publish this, by the way, and we'll put this link in the chat room right quick, so you can follow along. It is on our OG.SEM blog. It's the article on Abba, Nekabet, breath and the spirit, by Bayet. Okay, so this is the article. Abba, Nekabet, breath and the spirit, by Bayet. So we're talking about the female divinity, Nekabet, Abba, as she's called in Akhan, and her function, but then we get into the notion of the Ba and Bayet. So, and what I was saying was, until we publish this article and the information, when we publish the broadcast on BAITI, the twin flame, spirit and so forth, there was no information out proving that the term, Ba and Bayet are the divine living energy associated with the flame, connecting with the two spirits, the dual spirits, BAITI, connected to our cosmology. Everybody was talking about the Kabbalah, Hinduism with Shiva and Shakti, which we'll get into, or the Greeks. And all of that is misinformation. So this is the first explanation, the proper explanation of where it comes from. Now, we were talking about Nekabet, and we were talking about the great vulture with the great wings, and she's governing the respiratory system and so forth. But before we got into that Ba and Bayet section, we said, as we draw in air and oxygen, we are also drawing in the solar fire of the Aten, Atenit, the sun. The commingling of air, oxygen, and the solar fire within oxygen has its corollary in the commingling of the sacred moot, the vulture, governing the lung structure and the respiratory apparatus, and the sacred Ba or Bayet bird dwelling within the very same lung structure under the dominion of Abba. So when you breathe in air and you see the great mother divinity in the form of the sacred animal totem Nekabet, and she has the, hold on 1 second, make sure you can see that. So she has the, there's a great vulture in your chest. The breast of the vulture is like the heart region, the folded down wings of the lungs and so forth. This is the great vulture governing the expansion and contraction, the fanning of the wings and so forth, the expansion and contraction of the lungs, the fanning of the flames and so forth. That is the respiratory apparatus. But within that structure, when you pull in air, you're also pulling in solar fire. So there's a smaller bird within the great bird. That is the Ba and Bayet. So put that over here. So we have, and that link is in the chat room. So the term for spirit, the divine living energy animating us is Ba for the Afurakani male, Bayet, the Afuraitkaitnit female. The Ba or Bayet is a spirit force. It is a child of Ra and Ra'et, a child of the creator and creatress, called Inyokumpon and Inyokunton and Akhan. The creator is called Inyokumpon and Akhan. Creatress is called Inyokunton and Akhan, connected to the rainbow and so forth. The circular serpent, the rainbow and so forth. In Yoruba, that's Odumare and Oshumare. In Vodun, that is Da and Ida Huedo, the rainbow serpent, the circular serpent connected to the sun, the creator and creatress of the universe. So your Bayet is a spirit. It is a child. If you're female, it's Bayet. Male, Ba. It is a child, a spirit force that dwells within you, a child of Ra and Ra'et. We said Ra and Ra'et direct one of their children as a divine spirit force to take up residence within our spirit bodies. This is the divine living energy that animates us. It is the divine force operant within the solar fire, which we can direct ritually. This divinity called Ba or Bayet, a spirit assigned to each one of us, Afurakani people only, of course, is seated in the heart-lung complex region. Now, we absorb solar energy and heat through the breath. This solar energy is carried within oxygen through the bloodstream, thereby permeating the entire body. In the same fashion, the divine living energy animate within through the solar fire permeates our entire spirit body. We are not only vitalized by energy, but for Afurakani people only, our Ba, our Bayet, is the energetic link to the Ba, the divine living energy, the Ba'u and Baitu, the spirits of the deities and ancestral spirits. So just like you could take a deep breath and connect the air in your lungs to the air outside in the atmosphere, and it's a direct channel circulating through you, you can connect the divine living solar fire bird within you to the divine living energy of the forces in nature, as well as plant life, animal life, mineral life, and other Afuraitkaitnit people. And because we can connect our energy, make an energetic link to the divinities and ancestral spirits and so forth, then they can travel across that energetic link, and spirit possession can take place, and also spirit communication can take place. The whites in our offspring do not have a link. They don't have a Ba or Bayet within them. They don't have an energetic link to the Ba, the Bayet, the divine living energy of the deities, ancestral spirits, plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afuraitkaitnit, human life, so they have no energetic connection. Now, we're not talking about lower level electromagnetic energy. We're talking about a divine spirit that takes up a residence in the body. In the head region, you have the Ka, which is seated in the brain, just like you have a physical brain that regulates order within the body. You have a spirit brain, which is the Ka or Kayet, the soul that regulates order in the spirit body, the blueprint of everything that should take place. Just like you take in breath, solar, fire, or heat, energy that animates or vitalizes your bloodstream and so forth through the oxygen, you take in a divine living energy that animates your spirit body, that makes your spirit body animate and so forth, and it connects your energy to the energy of, other naturally created entities. So now look at the Ba. It is a bird, male bird for males, female bird for females, but this force is sometimes represented as a bird itself, or the bird with the head of the individual who it belongs to. So this is a spirit that we can communicate with. Just like you can send energy to your legs through martial arts or hands and so forth, you can direct that bird to fly to different parts of your body to empower you, to intensify its energy. The more you become familiar with that force that child of Ra and Ra that's within you, you can direct that force to operate in accordance with what you need to get done. But it's represented as a bird with a bowl of burning incense, sometimes just the bird itself, sometimes with a bowl of burning incense, and this is a flame emanating from the bowl of burning incense. That is the divine spirit flame, the Ba, the flame. Sometimes it's also the bird with a solar disk on the head, that's solar fire or flame. So whether it's the bowl of burning incense with the flame arising, or the solar disk, meaning the solar fire on the head, you're talking about a spirit force that's associated with fire or flame. Now, here's another example of a Ba bird. The royal, whose name was Yuya, who lived in the 18th dynasty of Kamit. He was the father of Queen T, the grandfather of Akhenaten. Of course, he's a Black man with a, afro and so forth. So the breast of the bird and the folded down wings are akin to the heart and lung complex. So we were talking about the difference between the little solar bird inside your heart lung complex and the great vulture, which is the external portion. So the Ba and Bayet is like the endocardium within the heart, the inner layer, and the outer layer is the epicardium, which is governed by the great vulture. So we were just going through that portion. So you see the great vulture here, which is Nekabet, governing the entire, breathing apparatus, governing the air. But then within the air, there's a smaller bird that's protected by the larger bird, and that is the solar fire bird sitting inside the heart-lung complex. That is your Ba, your Bayet, and the energy moving, generated in that region expands throughout your entire spirit body. To give further definition, this is after death, after transition, but also this occurs during life. You see the man here and his Ba, his divine living energy, being empowered and enlivened and rejuvenated by the female divinity Nut. And she's pouring libation of energy, so the Ba's spirit is being fed. So your divine solar energy is being fed by this divinity. The same thing is happening with the female. That's her, and this is her spirit. And once her spirit is fed, then it gets inside of her body and enlivens her and so forth. So you have a force, you have a divine force, a child of Ra and Ra that you can direct to expand its power within you, so you can utilize it. So when people lay hands and heal, when they engage in divination, we are invoking the Ba or the Bayet within us. When we engage in spirit possession, when we engage in clairvoyance, clairaudience, any form of ritual, we're invoking the Ba or the Bayet to expand this force within us so we can operate on a spiritual level. So we were going through that just to show cosmologically what's going on with the Ba and the Bayet. We don't have to go through everything here because it's talking about some other things. We showed this image saying just as one can train and direct a bird through falconry, so can we direct our spirit, our Ba, Bayet, our solar fire bird within us, to expand its solar fire to different parts of our bodies, organs, glands, joints, for healing, strengthening, ritual movement, ritual dance, ritual incantations, and so forth. We're directing the bird, just like the brother can direct the falcon to go fly out and grab something and bring it back, or do what it needs to do. We can direct that bird within us to execute certain functions. Okay, so for this one, there's no PDF, it's just the link. The link in the chat room here is the link to the WordPress document. That's the one that we're looking at. We didn't do a PDF for this one yet, but that's the link. So we just went through that briefly because we just wanted to show the relationship. We wanted to show that relationship of that solar bird, you need to see the flame. The Ba, the divine living energy, is represented, and let's even go into just real quick, just so you can see that representation to make the direct link. Okay, so when you see the term Ba, it says to have a soul, it really means spirit, which they don't understand. Endowed really with spirit. So sometimes you see the bird, sometimes you see the bowl of burning incense. They'll also show the ram that has that fiery, virile energy and so forth. And they show the various definitions. You'll even have, for example, you'll even have the term Ba, as you can see here. Soul really means spirit. The heart soul, talking about dwelling in the heart lung complex where that divine solar energy is drawn into and is generated. And the fanning of the flames, fanning of the wings, with the batting of the wings, the expansion and contraction of the lungs is the fanning of the flames of that solar energy. It's in the heart region, that's the seat, and the little bird is sitting in your chest. So might, power, strength, courage, this is why it's associated with that. But in this, so these different various spellings, sometimes the bowl of burning incense in front of the ram, because the word for ram is Ba, just like the term for soul is Ba. Just like the term for bull is Ka, the term for soul is Ka. And the word for cow is Kayet, the word for soul, female, is Kayet. The word for spirit is Ba, the word for ram is Ba, female, Bayet, and the word for spirit is Ba and Bayet. So sometimes they'll show the ram Ba because it's phonetically the same with the bowl of burning incense once again. But the other key is here. These are different spellings. The bird with the burning incense, the man with the bowl of burning incense in front of him, or the man's head on the body of the bird. But here's another rendition. Ba plural, you have 3 bowls of burning incense. And that, rendition, the word for Ba is just the bowl of burning incense with the flame arising. So that is the Ba spirit, the spirit of the individual, the spirit dwelling within the individual, the divine spirit dwelling in the individual that's manifest as a flame. And then we have BAITI, the 2 divine spirits, really 2 divine flames, the twin flames, BAITI. Remember T, duo, twin, twi, di, and so forth. The twin spirits, the twin flames, literally. And it says the 2 souls or spirits within the 2 chafi. So what are they talking about when they say the 2 souls within chafi? And then we'll get into Amen and Amenet and so forth. But first we have to get into this cosmology. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Runu Perdim Heru, the so-called Book of the Dead. This one is the Papyrus of Ani. And we're going to give the cosmological proof of what that Baiti, we just saw, Ba, spirit, Bayet, female spirit, but then Baiti, it said the 2 spirits within the dual chafi. So who are these 2 spirits within the dual chafi that we're talking about? So in chapter 17 of the Runu Perdim Heru, which is one of the longest chapters in the Runu Pertinent Heru, so-called Book of the Dead. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. We just want to get to the portions that are relevant to what we're talking about. They're talking about, you know, the scribe who transitioned. His name was Ani or Anui. So he's invoking the different divinities for his, you know, strength and protection and so forth. So it's talking about the divinities who are in the following of Heru, spoken for him who loves his master. What then is it? Moste, Hapi, Dwamutef, Kep-Senwef, the four sons of Heru. Homage to you, masters of right and truth, divine beings behind Alsar, causing to be annihilated. Oh, let me get back to that. Causing to be annihilated defects who are in the following of the goddess Hetep, Sekus. Grant you me that I may come to you. Destroy you the defects all which belong to me according to that which you wrought for the beatified beings 7, these who are among the followers of their master Sapa, made Anpu their place that day of come therefore there. So they're asking the four sons of Heru. He's invoking these four divinities, the four sons of Heru. Dwamutef, Kep-Senwef, Hap, and Amoste. Grant you that you may destroy my defects. I've shown myself that he already went through the balancing of the heart against the feather and so forth, shown himself to, you know, live in harmony with order. So he's purging anything that is negative, destroy any defects, any kind of, just like when Alsar is buried and he's mummified, so his body will not be attacked by maggots and so forth, or not, you know, tampered with and so forth. Those spirits repel that negativity, those defects away from him. He's saying, well, since I'm purified, I went through the judgment of the weighing of the heart and so forth, as well as the judgment with the god Ma'ah. Destroy any defects that would manifest near me, just like you did for Asar, because I want to be accepted in the company of the ancestresses and ancestors in a harmonious, you know, spirit realm community. The ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, the Nanonom and Samanfo, destroy these defects that will try to attach themselves to me like maggots and so forth, because I am purified. Do the same thing for me that you did for Alsar. And you see the four sons of Heru protecting Alsar and so forth. You see Anpu, the jackal-headed divinity, mummifying the body of Alsar. He's the priest who's mummifying the body of Alsar, just like we were doing the Hoodoo tradition, preparing the body and communicating with the spirit of the individual and so forth. He's mummifying the body of Alsar, and he placed Sepa, the centipede divinity, as a protector over the body of Alsar. We talked about Sepa, the centipede divinity, governing the 42 gnomes of Kamit, so-called Sepatu are named after Sepa. 42 Sepatas, 42 gnomes, administrative divisions of Kamit, similar to 42 states, just there are 50 states in America, plus the District of Columbia, which is the capital. So you have 42 sets of nerves, and then you have the set of nerves, the 43rd, which is regulating and so forth. You have 42 divisions of Kamit, and then you have the center of government and so forth. So when they talk about the 42 assessors of Ma'at, the judges of Ma'at and so forth, they govern the 42 states or gnomes or Sepatu and so forth. We did a broadcast on Sepa, the, you know, centipede divinity. When you look at the centipede's body, then you look at the 42 set or 43 sets of nerves in the body of the human being, you'll see it's in the same form of that centipede, literally. So we have that Sepa right in the body. They place Sepa, the centipede divinity, to govern the body of Alsar, just like our 43 sets of nerves. In fact, let me just show you that so you'll see a representation of that. Just so you can get that understanding. Okay, so this is a broadcast we did a while ago. And as you can see here, ancient Kemet, the different, going from south to north with the north at the bottom, the 42 administrative divisions. If you look at the body, the 40 and the capital, then you have the 43 sets of nerves that govern the entire body and so forth. And then you look at Sapa, the centipede divinity, and you have that centipede divinity governing your 43 sets of nerves that regulate the entire body, which regulates the entire quote unquote country. The different 42 quote unquote states within the country of Kemet were called the Sepat, named after the god Sapa, the centipede divinity, and his body governs the entire country. Hold on one second. So we just want you to see that Sapa piece. So that's what they're talking about in the text. So when it says in the text that excuse me, Anpu, they say Anubis, but Anpu, it says these divinities, these 7 beatified beings, these who are among the followers of their Lord Sepa, made Anpu their place, that on the day of come therefore there, Anpu, who mummified the body of Alsar, he placed 7 divinities under the direction of Sepa to protect the body, the mummified body of Alsar. These 7 beatified beings, or these 7 Aku, these 7 spirits protecting the mummified body of Alsar, are related to the 7 Karu, the divinities, and quote unquote chakras and so forth, or Kakra, which comes from ancient Kemet, Kara, the 7 divisions, the 7 spirits that govern those 7 Karu. In this text, there are 7 divinities that govern the entire purified body of Alsar. We have our bodies, spirit bodies that are purified and so forth. 7 divinities, 7 beatified beings, 7 Aku govern the body, and they're under the direction of the divinity Sepa. So he is asking, just like you put 7 divinities to govern the purified body of Alsar, and therefore there are no defects in the body of Alsar, do the same thing for me. Since I went through that test, I passed the test, I would like to be in the same position so I can repel any negativity, any negative discarnate spirits who would try to control me. So then the question is asked in the text, what then is it? These lords of right and truth, it says these lords of right and truth, Tahuti and Astes, master of Amentet. They're explaining what they said earlier in the text. The divine beings behind Alsar, Moste, Hapi, Dwamutef, and Kep Senowef are those who are behind the thigh in the northern heaven, talking about a constellation. And for example, you will see the 4 sons of Heru in the constellation of so-called Orion or Sa. When they talk about the shield of Orion, actually Sa is Alsar's constellation of pavilion, and the so-called shield of Orion is actually the 4 sons of Heru. So when they're talking about in the heavens and so forth, this is what's going on. Then it says, now those who cause annihilation of defects and are in the following of Hetep Sekus, Sebek are in the waters. Now Hetep Sekus, this female divinity, is the eye of Ra. Otherwise said, the flame it is following Alsar to burn up the bayou, the spirits of his enemies. As concerning the defects all which belong to Alsar, the scribe of the divine offerings, Ani. Hold on one second. Since he went forth from the womb of his mother, as concerning the beatified beings 7, it mentions 7 beatified beings. Now it says, well, as concerning those 7 beatified beings, these Aku, They are Moste, Hapi, Dwamutef, Kep-Senewef, Ma'a, Atefef, Keti Bekef, Heru, Kinti, Ma'a. So they just named the 7 beatified beings. They mentioned them earlier. The centipede divinity Sapa placed 7 divinities to protect the purified body of Asar. These 7 Aku, beatified spirits. We would like those same 7 spirits when we're doing this ritual prayer, to be placed over our spirit body to keep us purified and strong as well. Then it says, well, who are these 7 beatified beings? Who are these 7 Aku? So in this text, it's a question and answer format. They make a statement, and then they give you a definition. They give you the cosmology, and then they give you definition. Question and answer, or call and response. Who are the 7 beatified beings? Moste, Hapi, Dwamutef, Kep-Senewef, Ma'a, Atefef, Keti Bekef, Heru, Kinti, Ma'a, as it says here. Place them on Pu as protectors of the purified body, or quote unquote dead body, or mummified body of Asar. Then it says, otherwise said, they're given further definition, the place of purification of Asar. Otherwise said, the beatified beings 7, those are Neche, Aked Ked, An Eder Tad, Nef Besef, Kinti Hef, Akher Ami Unut F, Desher Ma'a Ami. And then they give let me scroll down a little bit. They give these different praise names for these 7 divinities. Then it says, so they gave the names of the 7 spirits. Then they gave the praise names of the 7 spirits to further define them and what their roles are. Then it says, now the chief of the divine beings of those who are of his hall of Heru is Heru, the avenger of his father. And concerning they that have come then there, the saying to Asar, it is by Ra, come then there. See, it is decreed for me in Amentet, or the spirit realm. Now, here's the key we need to get to. So the person transitioned, their heart was balanced against the feather. They're adjudged to be a pure individual. They have access now to live amongst the ancestral spirits of the community who lived in harmony with order, and they can live in the ancestral realm harmoniously for the next 100, 150 years until it's time for them to reincarnate. Before they get to that point, they want to be purified, just like the body is mummified, so it's impervious to decay. We don't just leave the bodies out there, maggots can, disrupt them. We mummify the body, we purify the body, and then that mummification turns the body into a crystal. Literally, we crystallize the body. And it becomes the greatest magnet for the spirit of the individual who used to dwell in that body. It's the greatest ancestral shrine. So the body is purified, mummified, but we want our spirits to be mummified or purified so they're impervious to decay as well. So we ask the deities to do the same thing for us that they did for Asar. Purify the body, the spirit body, and as these 7 divinities to protect the spirit body. And this is what they're talking about. But then it says, then the next step was, when it said earlier in the text, the day of come then there, the saying to Asar by Ra, come then there. Decreed it is for me and Amentet. I am his Ba within the 2 Chafi. What then is it? What does that mean? It says, it is Asar. When he goes into Jedjedu, and you see the 2 Jed pillars, that's the region of Jedjedu, which the whites in our spring call Mendes in Greek. But that's a place in northern Kamit, but it's also a place in the spirit realm as well. He goes into Jedjedu. He finds the spirit, the Ba there of Ra, embrace one another there, and come into existence, the Bayou within the 2 Chafi. As concerning the 2 Chafi, it is Heru, the avenger of his father, and Heru Kinti in Ma'a, otherwise said, his double Ba within the Chafi. Now let's stop right there for a second and see what they're talking about. Hold on one second. Pull that up. Now let's go back to the definitions real quick. We said Bayeti is the dual Ba and Bayet. The Ba is really the spirit, not the soul, but the spirit. Ba for males, Bayet for females. And then the Bayeti is the two T, Bayet spirits, the two spirits within the two Chafi. That's what they're talking about in the text right now. It said that Ra and Alsar met in Jedjedu in the Jed pillar. This is the Jed pillar city. You see the two arms here, the Jed pillar, the four bars at the top of the same four vertebrae in the neck region and so forth. So when that divine living energy is coming from the base of the spine and going up through those 7 beatified beings who govern the spirit body of Alsar and so forth, when that energy is moving up the spine and so forth and gets to this region of Jedjedu in the Jed pillar region, as you can see here, is right above the shoulders. It is the vertebrae and so forth. And when they meet in that region, before they get to the heavenly region, the neck is the gateway between the heaven and the earth and so forth. So when they talk about the Kundalini rising and all that, that comes directly from the text of ancient Kamit. You're talking about the divine living energy of Ra and Ra moving within us. Once it gets to the Jedjedu region, Ra and Alsar unite in Jedjedu, right around here. And you'll find that the thyroid is right on the Jed pillar. You'll find the thyroid as well as the parathyroid is right on the Jed pillar, and Baneb Jed, the master of the Jed, the Ram divinity, is the regulator of the thyroid gland and so forth. He's the master of the Jed pillar and so forth. So, but in the text they say that right in this area, Jedjedu, Ra and Alsar meet. They're the two spirits operating within the two Chafi, or the two spirits or twin spirits operating in the two Chafi. That's the Jed pillar that they're talking about. But then there's another definition. Question in the chat room related to the 7 orishas. So very often when they're talking about the 7, these 7 major orisha, sometimes they're, depending on who's talking about it, they'll have the proper combination. Sometimes they don't, because things get mixed around and so forth. But there are hundreds of orisha, but when they're talking about that specific 7, they're talking about that collective. Well, let's get back to that, to the document. So we just saw Baiti are the 2 T Bai spirits within the Jed pillar. They met at, when he goes into Jedjedu or Dededu or Dadu and so forth, he finds the spirit, not the soul, the Ba, the spirit of Ra, embraces one another there. They said Alsar and Ra embrace one another in Jedjedu in that region, and came into existence the Bayu, the souls or spirits within the 2 Chafi, as concerning the 2 Chafi, Heru, the avenger of his father, and Heru Imkinti in Ma'ah, otherwise his double Ba within the Chafi. So now we're talking about the 2 spirits within the Chafi. That is the Baiti, the twin flame spirits. But here's the key point. Ba, spirit this of Ra, Ba, this of Alsar. Then it says, but it is the Ba, this, Bapu, which is within Shu, and the Ba, this, Bapu of Tefnut, his double spirit, Ba, that is within Jedjedu. So when they're talking about Alsar and Ra joining together, the double spirit, the twin spirit that is within Jedjedu is the spirit of Shu and the spirit of Tefnut. who is Shu and Tefnut, this is the origin of the whole twin flame piece. That's Shu and Tefnut. They are just identified as the twin spirits, the Baiti, within the Chafi, within the dual Chafi. This is the twin flame spirits, the male and female force, Shu and Tefnut. What is the story about Shu and Tefnut when they were together and then they separated and then they had to come back together? We've already identified them as the Baiti. It just said that the two spirits, not souls, but spirits in the two Chafi are the Baiti. And the Bai is shown as a bowl of burning incense with a flame. So they are the twin T flame spirits. They were further defined in the text of Kamit. The Baiti is Shu and Tefnut, a male and female divinity that will fuse together, two halves of a whole. Now we're going to see what happened when they separated and came back together. So cosmologically, as well as, etymologically, T, dual, Ba means spirit, but Ba is also shown as the bowl burning incense with the flame. That's literally the twin flame, T, Bai, or Bai T, the twin flame spirits. Then they're identified as a male and female force in creation. Now let's see what they have to say about what was going on with Shu and Tefnut. What happened with Shu and Tefnut? Now that's an ancient text, looking at, different things written about Tefnut and so forth. What do they have to say about Tefnut? One thing in the pyramid text, the oldest religious text in existence, hence the pyramid text, PT, pyramid text, utterance 685 says of the reborn king that his feet are kissed by the pure waters which exist through Atem, which the phallus of Shu makes and which the vagina of Tefnut creates. Now, identifying the original creative emission from Atem in which Shu and Tefnut were present with the sexual union of Shu and Tefnut. In the fully differentiated relationship, Shu seems to embody the more heavenly or transcendent aspect and Tefnut the more earthly or immanent aspect. That's one aspect of it. But there's an important piece with regard to the myth of the distant goddess. Let's get into that real quick. As you can see here, legend of the distant goddess from Tahuti, god of the moon, magic and writing and so forth, but they're talking about this text and they just mentioned it on the other site. Tefnut, the Eye of Ra, became estranged from her father and fled into Nubia, taking all of her precious water with her. Shua's expansion, dealing with fire. Tefnut is, contractive, dealing with water. She became estranged and she left and fled into Nubia, taking all of her precious water with her. In this land, she transformed herself into a lioness. She raged through the countryside, emitting flames from her eyes and nostrils. Viciously, she drank the blood and fed on the flesh of both animals and humans. As time went on, Ra missed Tefnut and longed to see her again. Egypt had dried. The land was in chaos. He summoned Shu to him, along with Tahuti, which is divine wisdom, the messenger of the divinities, and famous for his eloquence. Ra issued the command that Shu and Tahuti must go to Nubia and bring back his recalcitrant daughter. Before they set off on their journey, they disguised themselves as baboons and so forth, and all of that. So eventually, Tahuti and Shu found Tefnut in Begum, and they began to persuade her At first she wasn't interested in coming back, but then eventually she came back and all the water returned, and Shu and Tefnut, expansion and contraction, fire and water, came back together. 1 second. So you have the BAITI, the twin spirits, the twin or dual T, Bai, flame spirits that were separated. Tefnut went further south. Then the creator of the universe said, no, you all need to be reunited again because there's imbalance in the land. If we're talking about imbalance in the land, that means there's imbalance in the body, also imbalance in the spirit. So send Shu down to reconnect with Tefnut, but he must do so not to drag her back and force her back, but do so under the command of Ra, but under the direction and guidance of divine wisdom. It has to be a harmonious reconstitution, a harmonious union based on divine order, based on divine wisdom. So his movements to reconnect with his, other half is guided by divine wisdom under the direction, under the command of the creator of the universe. So Shu goes to the south, connects with Tefnut and so forth, and then comes back, north. And then when you look at the south, you're talking about the, the shift between the equinox and then going down into the fall equinox, then going down into the winter solstice and so forth. That's in the south and so forth from our vantage point. And then eventually the sun making its move back through the balancing point, through the spring equinox, and then getting to the summer solstice, and that union of fire, Shu and Tefnut at their fullest, most vigorous output and so forth happening at the summer solstice, going from the summer solstice, the highest point in the sky, which is northern from our, vantage point, going all the way down to the southern, the southern arc and so forth, which is the winter solstice at December 21st, which is coming up in a few days, the shortest night of the year and so forth, the darkest time of the year and so forth. Tefnut has left. Everything is, not happening well in the country. Ra says, the quote unquote divinity operating through the sun says we need to bring her back. And then she comes back to reunite with Shu. So, but it has to be according to divine wisdom. So the two spirits, the twin spirits, separate and come back together. They're the Bayeti, the twin flames, literally separate and come back together. We'll put a link in the chat room real quick. And we had to lay that foundation out first before we talked about Amen and Amenet as a foundational relationship. We didn't know what this twin flame piece is really talking about. Okay, this is just a short document, but we just wanted to further point out some things in this document. We wrote this document a while back. Short little article, Shu, Tefnut, and Sekhmet, Shiva, Kali, and Durga. Some people were talking about, Sekhmet is Kali, which is totally inaccurate. So if people are telling you about Sekhmet being Kali, that's foolishness. If they're talking about, Sekhmet being the distant goddess who left and went to Nubia and came back, totally inaccurate. It's actually Tefnut. And of course, they're both lioness divinities, so some people will get that mixed up. But Shiva, Shu and Tefnut, and Sekhmet is Shiva, Kali, and Durga. And we just kind of address that. One of the important things is sometimes Shu and Tefnut are called the two or dual T Shu. We even show that the U and the V and the W interchange, and Shu is Shuv. This is where you get Shuva or Shiva and so forth. We say there's no etymological root for Shiva in Aryan or Sanskrit. This is why Shiva is not mentioned in the Vedas. The Tamil or Dravidian language root Shiva, meaning reddened or angry, is a reference to the fire of Shu. Europeans always wondered why Shiva was not mentioned in the Vedas and so forth, and what his name actually means and so forth. you'll find that Shiva is inferred to be Rudra in the Vedas. One of the titles of Shu and Tefnut is Ruruta, which is Rudra or Rudra and so forth. Shu and Tefnut, the dual lion divinities. Here is Tefnut in the form of the lioness and so forth. You have Tahuti in this particular scene. Remember, he took the form of a baboon, trying to assist in bringing her back and, persuading her to come back to Kemet and bring that water back and that balance back and so forth. So, so we talked a little bit about, the origin of Durga and Kali and all of that. But the key point with regard to this one is Shu and Tefnut are also called the T, the dual T, dual two, twi or twin, Shu, Shu T. The male determinative with the beard, the female determinative with the breast and so forth, the male or female force. Why is that important, once again, to fully corroborate what we're talking about? Sometimes shoot is the feminine term for Shu. So you have Shu, the divinity. Shu T is Shu and Tefnut. But the reason why that's important is because of one of the definitions of the term for Shu. And it references that which is dry, hot, drought, heat. You'll see the solar disk and so forth. The feather for Shu, the term, and you'll also see the solar disk with the rays and so forth coming out. The term Shu also means fire. It can mean fire. It can also mean feather. But as you can see here, Shu, the light, the sun, daylight. When you're talking about the sun, you're talking about the fire. So the two Shu, once again, Shu T is the dual T, fire or flame or light. So once again, it's the Twi or T, the twin flame, Shu and Tefnut. That is, etymologically, that's who they are. We also saw cosmologically, that's who they are, the twin souls or spirits within the dual Chafi, Shu and Tefnut, as is defined in the Runu Pernim Heru. And then in the story of the distant goddess, Shu and Tefnut separate, expansion and contraction separate, and then they come back together in balance under the direction of Tahuti, the divine wisdom, because of the command of Ra. These are the twin flame spirits, expansion and contraction, who separate and come back together. But they're deities. Now, so before we move forward, any questions on any of that before we get to the other piece? All right. And of course, you'll be able to get all this information. Of course, you'll get the archive for this broadcast, so you can check it out whenever you want to. All right. Okay, so now that we know what a twin flame is, we know the Ba is a divine, and Bayet, a spirit that is sent by Ra and Ra, the creator and creatress, to take up residence in the bodies of Afuraitkaitnit people, is that divine living energy that we can expand through ritual invocation. When we expand the Ba within us, the Bayet within us, then we can engage in spirit communication, spirit, ritual invocation, spirit possession. but also clairvoyance, clairaudience. We can attune to each other spiritually and so forth. It allows us to connect. Now, just like Shu and Tefnut, male and female force that are fashioned to be two halves of the divine whole, when we incarnate into the world, we also have that twin spirit, just like we have a Shu has his Tefnut and Tefnut has her Shu and so forth. After the order of the divinities, we come into the world, we incarnate into the world. There's an Afurakani male, Afuraitkaitnit female, you know, because of our clans that we come through and so forth, we're naturally drawn to one another. If at least one person is engaged in, you know, some form of spiritual development or just basically on point or are listening to their Nsamanfo, they will be maneuvered throughout the course of life to certain occupations or certain places or institutions or whatever, so that they can cross paths with the individual they are naturally drawn together to cross paths with, because they carry a balanced function. They have an energy complex that is balanced, just like Shu and Tefnut. There may have been a separation, but at some point they are drawn together and so forth. And if we're just on a basic level, we'll be maneuvered into that position. Sometimes it's a little difficult in this society because we're brainwashed and we're following white culture and worshiping fictional cartoon characters like Jesus and Muhammad and Moses and, you know, Allah and Yahweh and so forth. And when we get these messages to make this decision, go here, work here, you know, do this, travel here, we may neglect it because it conflicts with the foolishness that we've, you know, embraced. And sometimes we, you know, make the wrong decisions. But you have an Afurakani male, Afuraitkaitnit female incarnate into specific matriclans and patriclans. Eventually we're drawn by Het Heru, the force of nature that governs, you know, the sensual attraction that is the precursor to procreative activity. She draws us together in a complementary fusion, pushes and nudges us in certain ways to end up crossing paths and so forth, so that we connect with the individual who has a balanced function. Now, what we want to do is show the foundational relationships of these divinities, starting with Amen and Amenet, and how they are models for different, really every aspect of our lives. Amen and Amenet are the great mother and great father, supreme being, called Inyamewa and Inyame, or Inyame and Inyamewa and Akhan, Olorun and Olokun and Yoruba, Lisa and Mawu and Vodun, you know, Chukwu and Komosu in the Igbo tradition. Every tradition has an understanding of the great mother and great father who function together as one divine unit. This is their most ancient name is Amenet, the great mother, and Amen, the great father. They're the most ancient religious compositions yet unearthed in the world, which are the pyramid texts, the Meru texts. No other religious compositions exist that are older than the Meru text, the pyramid text. In those texts, you will find Amen and Amenet together. There was never a time when there was just Amen or Amen Ra. There was never a time when there was just Amenet or Amenet Ra'at. That's dissexuality, homosexuality, the white Sonara Spring trying to promote the idea that there was one male divinity, the idiocy of monotheism, or one female divinity that gave birth to everything, and then the gods were the children of the great mother. That's dissexuality as well. White females trying to promote white female supremacy, white males trying to promote white male supremacy, and then, you know, making the divinities, you know, white. And then some of our people foolishly embrace their foolish philosophies. They show that the original deities were black, but then they try to promote a male divinity, monotheistic Amen, which is pure stupidity, or some women imitating white females trying to make the great mother divinity the origin of everything, and the gods were just her grandchildren, and, you know, subordinate to great mother. That's foolishness as well, and some of our people repeat that foolishness because they're repeating fools like Gerald Massey and Albert Churchward and some of these other individuals because they really don't understand cosmology. They start studying the misinformation of the whites and their offspring first, then they try to put it in Afrocentric jargon, but it has no basis in reality. And that includes many Afrocentric scholars or African-centered scholars, PhDs and so forth, have been teaching for years They're still promoting that foolishness because they got it from the whites and their offspring. But we can show clearly in the cosmology of any group on the continent and wherever we are that that's not the case. So the foundational relationship in creation is Amen and Amenet, the great mother and great father, supreme being. Everything proceeds from them, as we'll see in the cosmology. But first, we want to just show we gave a note on the origin of the name Nyame in Kemet.